All right, so here to talk to
Hello,
you today.
Professor
Whoop.
Ryman here, offering some
I,
introductory thoughts on the film Inception.
he
This
always does this.
marks
All right,
the
so he
very
steals my
point
thing at the
that
last
I'm
minute.
answering a few
Does it all the time in
questions and
class. This is
giving
finally
some
just one.
inkling of the
It's
big
finally my
ideas that
minute
I
to
think will
get
be
him
important as well
back.
as my follow-up
So,
remarks and give you a few things to look for.
not Greg Ryman.
Suspecting that most of you have seen this
However,
film already.
I am here. All right, that needs to. However, I am here to talk to you today about film and the philosophy of film. So, to jump right in, I'm here to talk to you about Dope. Dope is an American indie film which came out in 2015 and is written and directed by Rick Famuyiwa. Definitely not saying that right, however, it's close. Um, Dope is a tale about these three individuals from right to left, Diggy, Jib, and Malcolm, Malcolm being the main character, who grow up in the bottoms and have these grand aspirations of going to college, becoming musicians, and really increasing their station in society and figuring out who they are as individuals, while at the same time having to combat all of the constraints that go along with growing up in a very underprivileged suburb of LA known as the Bottoms. In the bottoms, they're forced to interact with drug dealers on a daily basis, can't explore themselves as musicians, and are often have to change the way that they do things on a day-to-day basis simply because of where they live and the individuals around them. But that's not to say that they aren't diverse and they couldn't be very successful if they grew up somewhere else. This is an excerpt from the movie, which provides you with that duality. One of the brief moments that they find themselves thrown into upper class society. So, for your enjoyment, so they're this goofy, nerdy, geeky group of people who really challenge the stereotype of a coming of age film about someone growing up in the hood. And that's really what Dope is at its core. But Dope is a vehicle for ethical discussions as well as remarks on identity, and Fumoya goes in really gets into the nitty gritty of it in the end of the film. But the ethical issues that he discusses in particular are race and gender stereotypes, what they mean, what does it mean to be a member of a different race or a different, not necessarily gender, but gender role than you're necessarily assigned with. If any member of LGBTQIA community and how they can interact with society, as well as the use of the N word and ultimately what it means to be black. And so he provides commentary throughout the film in little blips, such as the scene with this character on the right here, where they literally get into the nitty gritty of what does it mean to use the N word in a positive in a positive sense, and is that something that's even possible? And so for answers to that, I'm going to make you watch the movie, but let's talk about identity. So Malcolm is an individual who has really two sides to his identity. He has the side that he presents to society and the sides that he knows in his heart and that his friends know who he is. And that's built largely on his aspirations. But what other individuals in his life, the company that he keeps, sees isn't necessarily that. So you have his two best friends, Diggy and Jib, who he's with all the time, never leave his side, with a few exceptions, as well as the drug dealers, Dom and AJ, who force him to do things that he doesn't want to do and ultimately force him out of his comfort zone and require more than they should of him. But on the other side of the fence, you have everything that he wants to be, a mature, respected individual, and ultimately a man of Harvard. And that's sort of his goal throughout the film. And you see at the end that he finally attains that. So, keeping him from that goal are all of these different factors in society: gangs, the potential money that he could make dealing drugs, the threat of death if he ultimately joins the gang and starts down that slippery slope, and college requirements, which interestingly enough force him to start his own pseudo gang in the film, and further progress his descent down that slippery slope. But at the same time, you have good influences: his friends, the company he keeps, and the individuals that we saw above, and his values. And sort of and by values, I mean he knows who he is as an individual. And so when he's faced with a situation, he knows what he would do and doesn't have to think about it too much. And finally, education sits as a gray area here because while it is a vehicle to learn more and escape from the bottoms, it doesn't actually turn out to be that. So Rick Famuyiwa presents us with his final argument on identity and ethics in Malcolm's personal statement in his Harvard application, which reads, "Let me tell you about two students. Student A is a straight A student who lives in the suburbs of LA. He plays in a punk band with his best friends. He loves his skateboard and riding his BMX bike. His favorite TV show is Game of Thrones, and his favorite band is The Terminals. Student B goes to an underfunded school where teachers who'd rather not be there teach kids who really don't care. He lives with a single mother, doesn't know his father, and has sold dope. Now close your eyes. Picture each of these kids and tell me what you see. Be honest, nobody's going to judge you." Now, that's a really powerful statement, and it goes on to further say that there is no cut and dry. There is no cut and dry way for you to understand someone's identity simply by looking at them and attaching the stereotypes that you have formed throughout your experiences to them. And Malcolm is the only one who's able to say, "I know who Malcolm is," with very few exceptions. And so Famoya makes that statement and many, many more about all of the ethical issues that we discussed in that final speech, and I'll make sure to include that in the reflection section. But I've droned on long enough, so I'm going to go ahead and sign off here, and I look forward to hearing your reactions to Dope.